1 second.
Okay.
Hey, can you please, if they don't show this meeting up? And okay, thank you.
Go. All right. Welcome everyone to the Compass Finance Committee meeting for August 14th, 2025. Get a call to order or you want a roll call?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll do the roll now. Rod Beck. Here. Zach Brooks. Trevor Chadwick. Debbie Kling. Mary Nay.
Here.
John Overton.
Here.
Victor Rodriguez. See him online.
Say here.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Next on our agenda, open discussion or any announcements, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we just Compass wants to announce and remind everyone that the 2025 Leadership in Motion Awards are open. So this nomination period for Compass's annual Leadership in Motion Awards is underway. Nominations are being accepted in multiple categories for projects, individuals, and businesses for work conducted from July 2024 through June of 2025. Nominations will be accepted through noon, Friday, September 26th, and will be presented at the December board holiday luncheon. All information and a link to the nomination form is on Compass website. It's compassidaho.org. If you have any questions, please contact Amy Left or Josie Gallup on our team. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other announcements? Discussion items?
Western Idaho Fair starts Friday.
Commissioner Beck? What?
Yeah, Western Idaho Fair starts Friday.
That's right.
Goes through the following Friday.
All right.
Fall weekend.
Hopefully everybody will get out there and
Yeah.
have a good time.
If you drive down Chandler, you'll see a bunch of stuff being already set up.
Yeah, so learning stuff
Yeah.
yesterday. All right, thank you very much. All right, with no more discussion or announcements, we'll move on to item number 3, which is a consent agenda. I'll entertain motion for approval.
Madam Chair, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number 4, found on page 4, information discussion item, which are the disbursements made in the reporting period. Bring it over
Thank you,
to
Madam
Meg.
Chair. So the disbursement report is provided to inform the Finance Committee of all of the payments that we have made since the last meeting and to give the opportunity for questions. So I don't have any specific comments. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for Meg?
What's the radio thing we're doing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The radio ads are for our various public comment periods and outreach around health study, high capacity transit health study, to just let the public know that there are opportunities to comment on the various projects.
Yeah, fix it. Okay. Yeah.
What radio ads we're running.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Meg. We'll move on then to an action item to approve our 2025 audit process for the 4th time a year. The special guests.
Each August, we ask the Finance Committee to review the audit process that's planned, provide any areas.
That's the audit planning process. We have your audit tentatively scheduled for audit field work at the end of October. And we've sent these dates to and we've drafted an engagement letter for review. And as part of the planning process, we like to discuss any changes within the entity this year compared to previous years. So one thing we're seeing in our other audits is cuts in federal funding and DOJ, Department of Health Services. And I don't know how much of that really extends over to the Department of Transportation, but that's one thing we're seeing in our government and not-for-profit audits. The not-for-profits are hit pretty big. In some cases, there's going concern issues and questions as to whether or not those organizations will continue on, you know, so if those organizations don't continue and our audit kind of goes out with them. So that's one of the questions that I really had is if any of that is impacting your organization. We do have changes in accounting standards this year for compensated absences that will factor into our audit planning process. We noted the single audit threshold will change, so we always want to look at the single audit expenditures that you have to commit. You're heavily federally funded, and depending on the changes there, we could be looking at different programs. We could be testing the same program or not doing any testing at all. So wanted to really get a good sense from you guys in terms of how that has changed this year compared to previous years. We are seeing in our other audits, and I don't know if it's our clients or but in previous audits and this year's audit, we've seen an uptick in that data breaches, cybersecurity. These are more phishing schemes, I think, where our school districts or HR is just reading an email and you know, they click on something and they get compromised. And the fraudster is able to go in and get access to their payroll system, or in some cases, we're seeing vendors being impersonated and changing the wire instructions, you know, for organizations, and it's hit multiple audit clients this year and last year. So if something like that were to happen, you know, in this organization, that's something we kind of want to know about, and certainly would factor into our engagement fees and all that. And so just want to brainstorm a little bit. There could be changes that I'm just not aware of, and so maybe I'll ask Megan if she could kind of respond to that and discuss any changes this year compared to the previous years.
Thank you, Madam Chair Morgan. I think it's fair to say that Compass has not yet been impacted by federal funding changes. We've seen our funding streams remain consistent. The transportation bill is a 5-year bill, so the IIJA bill is still in effect and hasn't been changed. There will be a new transportation bill, as there is every 5 to 8 or 10 years once they finally get it done. So that'll be coming up in FY26. That we'll see that start to be negotiated and worked on our federal level. And of course, we could see changes to programs, to funding at that time. It's not particularly unique. We could see that every time there is a new federal funding federal transportation bill. So of course we anticipate changes, but not going concern issues from that standpoint.
That's good to know.
And then regarding data breaches, I think it's been a couple of years now, but we have updated our IT services, and they have locked down certainly our security compared to where we were previously, and it's much tighter, and they're constantly trying to make improvements of that. Of course, the bad guys are always one step ahead, so we do get those kinds of emails that Morgan was talking about. You know, hi Ashley, please change my payment information to this, and they're clever. Our staff will always make a phone call to verify any of that kind of information, because we have the luxury of being quite small. So we're very familiar with our vendors, we know all of our employees, and it's easy to spot something that's not right and to verify with a call. So.
Okay. It's federal funding. Last year you had about $3 million in federal expenditures. Is that expected to remain the same, or is it more or less drastically different?
More or less the same. Our funding does vary from year to year depending on the projects that we have. So we have, for example, our high capacity transit health study, which was a $1.1 million project, and that could that, showed an uptick in our federal funding, so those kinds of ebbs and flows, but I would not say drastically different.
One of the changes in the single audit guidance is there was a change in the threshold from $750,000 to $1 million. So if you spend more than $1 million, you're required to get a single audit. Whereas in past years, it's $750,000. Before that, it was $500,000. So it's important from a audit planning process for us to know kind of where you're at in terms of that level, because if you spend more than $1 million, you face higher scrutiny and a major program. So kind of based on what you're telling me, feel like we'll probably still do a single audit of your Department of Transportation plan. There is a new accounting standard. You've got about, at least I looked at last year's work papers, about 20 employees that pertains to compensated absences. And the guidance has changed in terms of how to accrue certain types of leave. One example is sick leave. There used to be an emphasis on, well, if we paid an employee when an employee terminated, then we would accrue it through there was emphasis on termination. Like if the employee particularly forfeited when they were terminated or quit, then you wouldn't accrue it. So with the change in the new standard, we're going to look at that in terms of how much leave was used or expected to be used this year. So it could be a potentially higher liability than in the past. And so just wanted you guys to be aware of that. We'll probably be going through and looking at your policies with respect to leave and determining whether or not under the new standard, we need to accrue an additional amount of leave or sick leave based on the new standard. So not sure where we'll end up there, but it's certainly when you have a guidance for auditors and new accounting standards that does impact our procedures. So wanted to let you know that we'll be working on that. So the goal is to have a draft by the end of November. That's kind of where we landed last year. And hopefully get through any review from Ashley and Megan and get it to the board hopefully early December. And then our plan is to issue the final report December 10th, December 11th, which is kind of where we ended up last year. So that's the tentative plan. I'm not sure, Megan, what the drop dead due date is, but I know it's always a quick turnaround given you have a September 30th year end, and we typically finish before the holidays. So there's a few months there where we work and come out here and do test work. So any changes in terms of that timeline or anything that needs to be addressed?
No, and just a slight correction, the audit is presented to the finance committee and made available to the board, but it isn't presented to the board at their December meeting. Our target is to have that report at the finance committee's December meeting, which I believe is December 10th. So yeah, it is a tight turnaround, but I have every confidence in Ashley to be well prepared and responsive on getting everything done so we can get that goal.
Great. Well, you have the engagement letter. I covered the points that I wanted to talk through. I'm open for questions, from the board, from the finance committee. What do you think the auditor should focus on? What the timeline seems appropriate? Any questions about the audit planning process itself? Or anything I discussed, so I'll leave it open.
Thank you, Morgan. Any questions, comments regarding the audit? Commissioner Beck?
Is there any differences in this engagement letter other than the ones you've gone over?
No, it's essentially last year's document updated for obviously the fee and the dates and the timeline. It should look very similar to past engagement letters.
That helps.
Yep, that helps. Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
You need a motion.
Yes, we do.
I move to approve the 2025 audit process.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Morgan.
All right.
We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you for being here with us.
You stick around if you want.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sam, kick back.
Good. If you don't mind, I think I'll.
We don't blame you.
Yeah, you should expect to be hearing from him in next week and soon regarding audit. So thanks a lot.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Thank you, Morgan. All right, next item, 5B, found on page 17, to get a report on the variance report. And we will be looking for a motion to approve.
Yes, thank you. So as noted, this is an action item for you today. It begins on page 17 with the memo, and the major variances are discussed in the memo. So I'll just make some quick comments on a couple of highlight items from the budget to actual by line on page 19 in your packet. As of June 30th, we're 75% of the way through the fiscal year, but we've billed about 50% of our budgeted federal grant revenue. Grants are billed on a reimbursement basis after the costs are incurred. So we would see corresponding variances to that revenue on the expense side. For the most part, both the revenue and expenses for those projects that are in process will be carried over to fiscal year 26. A little further down the page, we have our member dues, our participant contributions, and other miscellaneous revenues. So we've billed and collected all of our member dues for the year for fiscal 25 and all of the photography flight participant contributions as well. You'll see there's just a little bit of variance on that with photography flight as we had fewer participating agencies than we had anticipated. So we'll make up this approximately $7,000 difference from our fund balance. Our interest is running just a bit ahead of budget, which I always like to see. The next section on the page is our personnel costs. We're at about 72% of the budget for this point in the year. So a little bit of a positive variance, but still a bummer because we have 2 vacancies currently that we are trying to fill. That we have some other savings in benefit costs and the timing of increases for staff, but primarily that variance is due to those vacancies. This is a true positive variance, and we will see the related consolidated planning grant dollars get carried over to FY 26 to be applied to those expenses. These are not, expenses that will be incurred later. Direct expenses on the next section, they're about 40% of the budget expended to date. Generally, the projects in process, as I mentioned, will be carried over to fiscal year 26. For example, a high capacity transit health study is expected to wrap up in December this year. A couple of big ones there. The Spears project is $345,000 in total budgeted expenses. This is a Safe Streets and Roads for All implementation project. And that is expected to be carried over in its entirety to fiscal year 2026. It is under contract. Contract is in process, but expecting those expenses to occur in 26. Corresponding federal fund there. The data purchase project for $150,000 and its associated federal revenues have been canceled. And in our next item on the agenda, we'll be adjusting that out. The results against budget by program are pages 20 and 21 in your packet. That's the same information. It's just presented in a different format with comments there. The balance sheet is on page 20. Balance sheet is on page 22. And you just note that there's 2.3 million cash on hand as of June 30th. This is well above the minimum required reserve of $1 million that you established. However, our year-to-date cash is about $114,000 less than it was at the start of the fiscal year, and we do expect to draw down some additional cash before the year is over. We're continuing to monitor that cash position closely and make sure that we're staying well above that desired reserve. That concludes my comments. I will answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Meg. I just have a question, just need some clarification. On the general public services, it shows that we're at 227%. And the comment about it being over budget, directly related to the amount of services requested by the general public.
Yes.
Is this something we need to look at maybe increasing the funds that we have there? Or can you just touch on what types of services these are and who's requesting them? And
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So we will get requests from the public or a non-member agency for some technical assistance, for example, for a fire district or something might ask us for some GIS information, mapping and so forth, and we provide those services, answering questions of the public. The expenses are an allocation of staff time, so the total pie of staff time stays the same, so these are not additional dollars that we're expending, we're just trying to estimate how many work days we would apply to that versus other programs. But the total dollars of staff time remain the same. If that area is large enough that it was really eating into our ability to do some other work at the agency, that would be something we would need to look at in terms of capacity. But otherwise, it's just kind of a shifting around that high.
Good to take a look. Okay, I appreciate that update. So I was just looking at it and I was just curious exactly, you know, the breakdown.
Yeah.
And what all is entailed. All right, thank you, Meg. Any other questions or comments for Meg before we move on? All right, seeing none, this is an action item. So I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the variance report as presented.
All right, thank you.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, next item, 5C, found on page 23. We're looking for approval of revision 3 of the FY 2025 Unified Planning Program and Budget.
Thank you.
Meg.
Another action item for you today, we're bringing forward a proposed revision to the fiscal year 25 Unified Planning Program Budget, or UPWP. Mainly to capture some additional revenue that has become available, but there are also a couple of other adjustments that we've included as well. Complete document is in your packet and I'm happy to answer questions on any part of it, but I'm just going to focus on the changes which are summarized on page 24. The first one is that increase to federal funding, a total of about $380,000, including the local match. Congress has instructed the Federal Highway Administration to make a one-time redistribution of unused Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation, TIFIA, one of our acronyms, program funds to states and transportation management areas following the eligibility and sub-allocation requirements for Surface Transportation Block Grants, or STBG. The overall redistribution amount of these TIFIA funds for our region as a whole is greater. This is just the portion that's in the Compass UPWP. It is important to note it's a one-time increase. We don't expect this funding category to continue in future fiscal years, but we did want to seize the opportunity to capture these funds while we could. With that additional revenue, we are able to increase funding for our project development program by $100,000 and create the opportunity to fund additional member projects. We always have, but we have more applications than we have funding available. So this gives us the chance to do some additional projects. As I mentioned in the previous item, we are removing that data purchase project and its associated federal funding. This project was canceled because we were able to fulfill this data need from other sources and didn't need to expend these dollars, so that those funds have been turned back. Lastly, increasing the funding for government affairs consultant support. These funds, together with the dollars that are already in the budget, will allow us to bring in that consultant support prior to the end of this fiscal year if we are able to get that accomplished. With this additional federal funding, we are able to reduce that budgeted draw from our fund balance that's needed to balance the budget by about $277,000. Net overall, the total adjustments are just $47,000. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. The government affairs, is that a discussion still to be had as to whether we're going to move forward with? You had mentioned something at our other meeting.
Yeah, so if I could, so the basic plan right now as I discussed with the executive committee earlier this week would be, we had held off on a significant government affairs engagement this time around so that I had a chance to sort of settle in, as that's been hopefully successful. I'm at a point where I'm comfortable saying, I think the path that will give us the most success is gonna be to hire a government affairs consultant, essentially a lobbyist. And this particular amendment, and I'll be talking about that again with the executive committee as well as bringing it up with the board next week. But this particular amendment is really just intended so that once that decision's made, we can start the procurement. And if we're able to get the procurement underway, there are some activities that we'd like to get started on in the fall. And so we want to start start sooner if we can. It's a relatively small amount of an adjustment in this year's budget, but it's more significant for next year.
Right, absolutely. Good. It's good to kind of have an idea of the timeline to be moving forward, what we're doing. All right, thank you very much. Any other further comments? All right, I will go ahead and entertain a motion.
Tier.
Recommend we approve provision 3 of the FY 2025 Unified Planning Program.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second for Rodriguez.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Now, action item 5D. This is found on page 46, and this is we're looking for a recommended approval of the updated 2026 Unified Planning Work Program and Budget.
Thank you.
And Meg.
All right, this is our last action item for you today. You may recall that at your last meeting on July 10th, you did approve or recommend approval rather of the 2026 UPWP. Since then, we have one addition to make. So we brought back a revised version of that document and are asking you to recommend approval of this updated version. That's where we are today. If you do approve it, it will go before the board on Monday for their adoption. The change that we have is what we just discussed, which is the addition of that government affairs consultant support at both the federal and state level. There's this 90,000 is in addition to the 10 that was already in the UPWP, making the grand total 100,000. The revenue side is an increase in the draw from fund balance to cover those costs and balance the budget.
All right, so that's it.
That's it.
All right. Any questions or comments for Meg? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion for approval.
Madam Chair, I do have a question. Do you have somebody in mind already for who is going to be hired to lead this effort?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, we will conduct an RFP process, so we will go out for proposals on that. I don't know if there's a firm in mind.
And a follow-up question. What kind of outreach at the federal level do you expect them to be doing?
Thank you, Commissioner.
I thought it was,
Go ahead, Director.
yeah, so really what we're gonna be looking for, the vast majority of this expense will go towards state level advocacy on behalf of the board. Really at the federal level, the primary goal we're gonna be looking for is connections and someone who is monitoring kind of behind the scenes, the kind of things that I don't get from the national organizations that we're part of. And probably what we'll be targeting is someone who has experience working with the state delegation more so than someone who's a transportation policy consultant type, so that they can ensure that we're able to have that contact, open the doors for us to be able to work with our federal delegation, and to a lesser extent, be able to get us in with the federal agencies that we work with as well.
Yeah.
I think having those relationships and the access available and knowing the lay of the land, not just,
That's what we're hoping for. And I'm sorry, you're gonna hear the same thing in a couple days at the board meeting.
All right, thank you. Any further questions, comments? All right, looking for a motion of approval.
I'll make that motion. Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, to clarify, we're
Oh, we're in
recommending
discussion.
board approval.
Oh, pending board, okay. We're recommending board approval. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Meg. Any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Takes us down to item 6. Next meeting is November 20th. And with that, there are no further comments or announcements. Are adjourned.
Thank you. Yes. Goodbye, everybody.
Victor, good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Come in.